Look, perfectly sliced piece of bread.
I just
It's good.
Ooh, done. Okay. Oh, not very good.
Perfect still.
You still you're okay? This one's yours.
Things taste good at the cabin. Always seem to taste better, but this is really good. Oh, that was good. Thank you. Delish. I'm serious. That was a really good sandwich. All right. Oh, I'm full, folks. I figured I'd come over and check the fire. In my last solar video, I talked about the cost of my initial solar system or solar power system that we put in, and what that entailed, what it looked like, how much it cost. And I thought in this video, as I worked on my little campfire here for a little bit, which smells good, folks. It smells really good. You ever notice that about campfires? They just smell so good. I don't know if you're a firebug or not. I'm not going to say I'm a firebug, but I do like my campfires. This one has just about gone out because we went inside and had a good lunch. And honestly, sometimes after you have a lunch at the cabin, you end up just wanting to take a nap, which I think is what Darcy's doing. Oh, I don't think that's going to go. Oh, there we go. It's quiet out here. It's awesome. You ever just get out in the woods and it's so quiet and relaxing that you know you've got stuff you need to do, but you're just thinking, I don't know. I may just have to sit here and relax. But, I mean, that's not what this video is for, folks. So in my last video, I talked about the cost of the initial solar power system that I put in. But I not only gave you the cost, the original quote on my original system was like $25.99, but then I had some additional costs. So I gave you that in that video, and then I even showed you what a modern system like that would run you today if you had about the same budget. Well, that system worked pretty well. However, in 2013, I was hired by the local phone company to manage this area. And this is 4.5 to 5 hours from where my wife and I lived. And so I figured, well, I would just move into the cabin. And I did. I lived here at the cabin for a year, totally off-grid, with some exceptions. You know, some might debate what off-grid really means. Technically, in my mind, off-grid means I'm not on the power grid. Some may look at that as you're not off-grid if you have a phone line, and I did have a phone line. There's no cell coverage here. And then I had satellite internet and satellite television. Hey, I'm living alone, you know, and I'm working full time. So I had to have internet and a phone for my job. And television, you know, gave me a little bit of entertainment on those long, dark winter nights. Otherwise, completely off grid. But when I decided that I would move in here and take that job and live here for a year, there was a couple things that had to be done. One, and oh look, my fire is starting to go, folks. That's awesome. It's going to get a little warmer. It's real cold out here. It's supposed to be a nice, bright, sunny day, and it has not worked out. So one of the things I had to do, oh, and look at that. Got some smoke coming out of the chimney. Darcy's nice and warm. I had to put the back room that's back behind the tractor there, I had to put that in. Now, that was in 2013, and that's when that outhouse there also got put in. And I put that outhouse in because in order to get that back room built, I had to remove my composting toilet that I had there and, you know, had to have a place to go to the bathroom, so we built the outhouse, which has become, you know, a nice backup for us. Let me get some more wood over here and get warmed up a little bit more. It is chilly out here, folks. Oh, put this piece here and let it dry out. So while I do this, I'll continue my story. So I got those things done. The next thing was I realized that I needed to improve the overall power. For one of the challenges that I had kind of always was that little 3,500 watt generator. One, it would be easy for someone to steal it. And two, you know, it didn't have a big gas tank. And, you know, so I had to always make sure I had fuel for it out here. Oh yeah, getting some nice warmth off that now. That's good. And I had bought a new Generac 6,000 watt, the Generac EcoGen series. So I had to get that installed and put in a 500 gallon propane tank. That's, you know, on tap now, right? Prior to that, I had just been using like 5 gallon propane tanks for the stove and for the hot water heater. So putting that in gave me not only a generator that had hundreds of gallons of fuel that I never had to worry about, really, right? It'd last me all year. And it gave me a generator that would produce plenty of power for all my needs. Okay, but it's still not going to work the way I needed it to work. Just the generator alone wasn't going to solve the problem. So I had to put in a Magnum Research automatic generator start switch. I also put in a Bogart Engineering trimetric battery monitor system. And at the same time, I decided to upgrade the system power a little bit so that I had a much better power source, meaning the inverter itself, right? So you've got your batteries, but you got to convert that battery power to 120 volt for your normal household appliances. Now, I had the 2,500 watt inverter, but honestly, that was great for just little weekend stuff, but it doesn't produce quite enough power, and it was a modified sine wave inverter, so like lithium batteries, things like that, don't like to charge off that. Certain things don't run well off of it. So you're better off changing that out, and I decided to go ahead and change it out, and I put in a 4,000 watt Ames pure sine wave inverter with a 50 amp 24 volt battery charger, and it was a 24 volt inverter. What this allowed me to do is put 4 more batteries in. In my previous video, and perhaps at the beginning of this one, I'm just enjoying the fire too much, I'd said that you can only add lead acid batteries at about up to 1 year from when the initial putting the batteries in. So I had 8. How did I get to 12 all of a sudden? Well, I did some research, and I found a set of 4 golf cart batteries, exactly the same kind as I had, that were the same age. Now that's not necessarily the best approach because frankly, you can't tell how badly they were abused. Fire's just warming up my knees, folks. They're getting warm. You back up a little bit. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? So I decided to take a risk. I got 4 batteries that seemed to be reasonably well maintained, and I went ahead and put those in. And what I did is I took 4 batteries and put them in series. Now those are 6-volt batteries. So if you put 4 6-volt batteries in series, it adds up to 24 volts. Now I had 3 24-volt battery strings, all feeding a now 24-volt inverter, 4,000 watts that could peak at 12,000. Now this inverter will run your table saw, folks. It's a beast. It weighs about 80 pounds too. It's heavy. So we put that inverter in, and it had its own charge controller. We put in the generator. I put in the trimetric battery monitor. I put in a 24 volt to 12 volt converter so that now my 12 volt stuff that I had set up previously to just run off the battery bank could now run off of that. And of course I had an automatic generator start switch. So now the system's been upgraded a little bit, and I will put the cost of all of these at the end of the video for you. But I wanted to bring up kind of the reasons why I did some of this. First of all, the initial system was lacking a little bit. One of the things that was happening to me that winter before I got that generator installed was I was having to run that 3,500 watt generator like 2 or 3 hours in the morning, 2 or 3 hours in the evening. The 8 batteries I originally had couldn't handle the amount of usage I was putting them through. And so I bumped that up. I think it was November of that year. I bumped it up, either November or December. I bumped it up to 12 batteries. And by then I had my Generac set up so that it could come on. And it would come on at 2 hours, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, every single day. So, however, in the winter or in the summertime, generator didn't need to come on at all. So those 12 batteries provided me enough power that as long as I was getting the really long hours of solar production in the summer that I could leave my power on all summer long, leave my refrigerator running. I could even run the freezer and leave that running if I needed to. And that system actually worked pretty well. There were some challenges with it. One of them is that you can't drain lead acid batteries down that much, right? You really only want to drain them about 20%. You start draining them down to 50% total depth of discharge, and you cut their cycle life in half. So you got to be careful. But overall, the system was working pretty well. And honestly, today, I think it's not a bad system. If I could go back to the very beginning, I would have started there instead of where I started previously, right? I said $3,000 roughly my original system. By this time, I've more than doubled that. However, it's a much better system. Now, of course, if you're somebody that really can't afford to put in all that stuff right away, you can do what I did. You could put in, 6 or 8 or 12 batteries early on. You can start with a PCM controller with a modified sine wave inverter. You could do all of that stuff to start out. But by the time I got the system with the 4,000 watt inverter, folks, I could run anything I wanted. It was awesome. I could go flip the generator on with a flick of a switch. I had the automatic generator start switch set up at 24 volts, which meant that my batteries were maybe only 15 maximum, probably not even 20%, probably 15% discharge by the time the generator kicked on. And while that first set of batteries only lasted me 5 years, my second set of golf cart batteries lasted me 8 years, folks. So it really can work quite well, quite nicely. Now what I'll do is, like my last video, I'll finish this one off in the shop and show you. Getting smoked out, aren't we? Oh. Boy, that feels good though, folks. But I'll finish this video off in the shop, and I'll give you some figures for how you can put that system today. I'll show you what I paid for, everything I can find receipts for. I'll show you what I paid for the original system, and I'll show you what it would cost you to do that today, so stay tuned for that. So let's switch over to the shop real quick, and I'll run that through for you. All right, here we are back in the shop, folks. I'm going to get this done real quick for you. Don't worry, won't take long. And thanks for still being here. I really appreciate it. Now, let's get right to it. I bought that 4,000 watt Ames pure sine wave inverter charger, which, by the way, is almost twice the power that my old 55 amp charger had, because it was 12 volts and this one's 24. So that's a big difference. Well, that originally cost me $1,399. Today that runs $1,313. And I'm going to put this up on the screen for you afterwards. Now, to make all this work, I also picked up a few other things. One that I needed, which was a 24 volt to 12 volt converter. That was $210, and believe it or not, today you can get one for $113 that's every bit as good, if not better. There's a trend you're going to see here. I picked up a Magnum Research AutoGen start switch. That cost me $219. Now the same one today shows $296. It's a standalone unit. I picked up a Bogart Engineering trimetric meter. Now that meter allowed me to see how many amps were going into my batteries, or I was drawing off the batteries. And folks, stop talking watts, stop talking kilowatts, stop talking watt hours or kilowatt hours. Frankly, it's silly, and I think salespeople are the ones that came up with that nonsense. It's okay to mention the watts on your solar panel, but quite frankly, even that's not relevant. What matters is amps. And amps matter in a number of different ways. One, you need to know how many amps your system is both getting from the solar panels, because that determines the size of the wires that you need that are coming back to your combiner box. And you should be running a combiner box. Sure, some guys talk about running fuses. Put a combiner box in with a breaker, which is rated in amps. If you put a 20 amp breaker in, well, then you can't hit it with more than 20 amps, folks. Right? If you're running 3 panels in parallel and you got 33 amps coming out of them, you better put like a 50 amp breaker in there. Just something you have to consider. So let's talk amps, okay? Anyway, that trimetric meter from Bogart Engineering, that cost me $225, and today they're $274.50. Now, that allowed me to see not only my amp draw, my amp charge. It told me the state of charge of my batteries in a percent, so 80, 90%, 100%. And it would also tell me the voltage on the battery bank at that time. So it would always tell me that. I could look at it and say, oh, I got 26.5 volts or whatever. It actually has a lot more functions in the memory on it. I just don't use those. So they're there for tracking. You can use them. I don't. I just really like it so that I can see the voltage of my battery bank, and I can see how many amps are coming in or going out and what my state of charge is. That's it. It's a great little tool. You don't have to have that, though. And today I know that there are probably other ways of doing it, but that's what I put in. That's just about it. I did buy a Generac EcoGen 6 kW generator. That one ran me right about $3,500. Now today, they don't make that generator. They do make a Generac EcoGen 15 kW, which is considerably more power than that, and that runs $48.50. Now, do you need that generator? The reason I didn't put the price in here is because, honestly, you may already have a generator. You could do this with a 2-wire start Honda suitcase generator, really. So there's a lot of other options for generators. I got that one specifically because it had a very, very long run time between services, and it had an auxiliary oil tank, so that if it was running a long, long time and using extra oil, and you didn't check the oil in 2 or 3 or 6 months or whatever, it had like an extra gallon. So it only takes a couple quarts. So it's got like 2 or 3 fill-ups worth of oil that are extra there just in case. And I really liked some of those kind of features. It's an LPG generator, so it runs off propane. I put a big 500-gallon propane tank in. I could run that generator a lot over the course of the next year or two without even worrying about it. So I don't include those prices in the total here simply because you may go a different route on generators, and they're wide open in what they could cost today. The total to take my system from a 12-volt system with a 2,500-watt modified sine wave inverter to a 24-volt system with a 4,000-watt pure sine wave inverter and a 24-volt 50-amp charger that was built into that inverter was a total of $2,053. Well, folks, if you built the system like I did at the time for $2,700 and a few years later you decided to take it up a little notch $2,000 isn't a whole lot over that 3-year span, but guess what? Here's an interesting thing. If you were to do that today, the total would be $1,997.40. That's it. Anyway, so let's jump back over to the fire to finish this bad boy off. So there you have it, folks. I hope that was helpful for somebody. And I'll be honest with you, take a good close look at that. I actually think that was a pretty good system. It really wasn't that expensive in the end. You don't have to do the Generac generator. There's other options that you could use. I think you can get, the smaller, less expensive Honda generators with a 2-wire start. Those are always an option too. This system's more for somebody trying to live off the system. Maybe not a big household, but a small cabin like this, you could live here full time with that system. I did, folks. It worked really good. Well, there you have it, folks. That's where we're at. Listen, if you enjoyed this video, if you got something out of it, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button for me. Helps the channel out, and I really appreciate it. I'll drop another video right here for you to check out. You all have a great day. Appreciate you watching. The old Jarhead out.